Pull up a chair because today we've got a story that will make you question everything about family loyalty. They say parents should love their children unconditionally, but what happens when that love is one-sided? What happens when a child is forced to grow up feeling like a backup plan, only to be called upon when there's no one else left? In today's AGS stories, we dive into a tale of deep-seated resentment, long-buried wounds, and a choice that will leave you wondering, what would you have done? My parents chose my sister over me. Now they regret it. They say family is everything, but sometimes family is the very thing that breaks you. Let's get into it. Imagine growing up knowing, without a doubt, that no matter what you did, you would never be enough, because your parents had already made their choice. That was my reality. My parents chose my sister, Madison, over me, every single time. It didn't matter how hard I tried, how much I accomplished, how desperately I wanted to make them proud. Madison was always the golden child, the one they doted on, the one they protected. And me? I was just there, a shadow in my own home. For years, I told myself it was just in my head, that maybe if I worked harder, achieved more, they'd finally see me. Maybe they'd finally love me the way they loved her. But no matter what I did, straight A's, sports, scholarships, it was never enough. Then, when I turned 25, things got worse. They didn't just favor Madison anymore. They actively pushed me away. When she needed something, they moved mountains to make it happen. But when I needed them, silence. They told me I was strong, independent, that I didn't need their help. And when I begged them to be fair, they looked me in the eyes and told me, "You'll understand when you're older." Now, years later, everything has changed. They've lost everything. Their savings, their house, their stability gone. And the sister they spent their whole lives protecting, she left them behind the moment things got hard. And suddenly, for the first time in my life, they're looking at me for help. But should I give it to them? Or should I let them face the consequences of their choices? What would you do? Growing up, I always knew Madison was the favorite. But knowing something and truly feeling it are two different things. At first, I thought I was just imagining it. That maybe I was being too sensitive. That maybe, just maybe if I worked hard enough, I could change it. But I couldn't. Madison was given everything. New clothes, the best summer camps, private tutors. My parents made sure she had the best opportunities money could buy. And me? I had to figure things out on my own. When I asked why things were so different, why she got so much while I got so little, my parents would say the same thing every time. "You're strong, Alex. You don't need as much as Madison does." I used to repeat that sentence to myself, over and over, hoping that if I believed it enough, it wouldn't hurt so much. But it did. I watched my parents bend over backward to make her life easy. Every time she failed, they caught her. Every mistake she made, they covered for her. And when things got tough for me, they told me to figure it out. I worked twice as hard for everything I had. I got a job as soon as I could. I saved every penny. I studied late into the night while Madison went on expensive trips my parents paid for. By the time I turned 18, I was done hoping for their approval. They made their stance clear when they sent Madison to a private university, paid for her apartment, and even bought her a car. Me? I didn't even get a conversation. When I asked about college, my dad sighed and said, "You're smart, Alex. You'll figure it out." So I did. I took out student loans. I worked 2 jobs. I spent years barely sleeping, juggling school, work, and the crushing feeling that no matter how much I accomplished, I would never matter to them the way Madison did. And yet somehow, I made it. I put myself through school. I worked my way up in my career. I bought my own house at 27, started my own business, and built a life I was proud of. Meanwhile, Madison had never worked a day in her life. She floated through college without a worry, knowing my parents would handle everything. And after graduation, they still funded her lifestyle. Fancy vacations, a new car every few years, a luxurious apartment. While I was grinding every day just to stay ahead. And then everything changed. Madison got careless. She started making bad financial decisions, living beyond even my parents' means. It started with credit card debt, but it didn't stop there. She borrowed money left and right, took out loans she couldn't pay back, and ignored the consequences. At first, my parents kept bailing her out, but it didn't matter how much money they threw at the problem. She always needed more. And eventually, they couldn't keep up. They drained their savings trying to fix her mistakes. They remortgaged their house. They took out loans in their name just to keep her afloat. And one day, the house I grew up in, the one they had always promised would be passed down through the family, was gone. Just like that, my parents had lost everything. And Madison? She did what she always did. She ran. She cut off contact. Moved in with a boyfriend. Didn't look back. And suddenly, for the first time in my life, my parents were calling me. At first, I ignored their calls. I couldn't lie. I felt something when I saw their names pop up on my phone. But it wasn't love. It wasn't even concern. It was confusion. Why now? Where was this energy when I needed them? Where were the phone calls when I was struggling to pay for school? When I was exhausted from working 2 jobs just to afford rent? Where was the concern when I was eating instant noodles for months because I couldn't afford groceries? I let the calls go to voicemail. I wasn't ready, but they kept coming. Then came the messages. Alex, we need to talk. Please call us back. We're struggling. We need help. The first time I actually answered, I didn't know what to expect. An apology? Some sort of acknowledgement of how they had treated me? I was wrong. Instead, my mom was crying. My dad sounded exhausted. And the first words out of their mouths weren't, "We're sorry." They were, "We need you." They told me everything. How they had nothing left. How Madison had abandoned them. How they didn't know what to do. They wanted me to fix it. Me, the son they had ignored for years. I listened in silence as my mother begged, my father sighed, and neither of them took responsibility for the choices that had led them here. Not once did they acknowledge what they had done to me. Not once did they say, "We should have treated you better." All they cared about was survival. And now, for the first time in my life, I had the power. For years, I had fantasized about this moment, about the day they would need me, about the day I would finally matter to them. And yet, now that it was here, I didn't feel satisfaction. I just felt tired, because deep down, I already knew the truth. They didn't love me. They needed me. There's a difference. So now I have a choice. Do I help them? Do I put aside everything they've done and save them from the mess they created? Or do I walk away? What would you do? I need your advice. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you would do in my shoes. Wow, I didn't expect this many people to have such strong opinions about my story. But after reading your comments, one thing is clear. This situation isn't as simple as I thought. Some of you believe in forgiveness, in giving people a second chance. Others think I should walk away for good, that my parents made their choice years ago, and now they have to live with it. And honestly, I still don't know what to do. Let's take a look at some of the top comments. Speech Balloon at Real Talk Randy. They made their choice years ago. Now, they need to live with it. You had to suffer alone when they ignored you. They didn't care then, and they don't really care now. They only want you because you're their last option. If you help them, do it on your terms, not theirs. This comment hit me hard. It made me realize something. If the roles were reversed, would they have helped me? If I had been the one in trouble, if I had been the one drowning in debt, would they have done everything they could have saved me? Or would they have told me, like they always did, "You're strong. You'll figure it out"? I think I already know the answer. Speech Balloon at Jessica Loves Justice. I believe in forgiveness, but don't be stupid about it. Helping them is okay, but don't let them take advantage of you. If you decide to help, make sure it comes with conditions. If they aren't willing to change, then you have your answer. Forgiveness. I've always struggled with that word, because for so long, I told myself that if my parents ever reached out, if they ever admitted their mistakes, I would finally get the closure I needed. But now that they have, it doesn't feel like closure. It just feels like convenience for them. They haven't changed. They haven't apologized. They're just desperate. So if I do decide to help them, it has to be on my terms. Not because they expect it, but because I decide it's the right thing to do. Speech Balloon at Keep Your Boundaries. They only want you now because they have no other option. Be careful. If you let them back in, they might hurt you all over again. Protect your peace first. This comment has been playing in my mind over and over. Because the truth is, I know my parents. I know how they think. And I know that if I open the door too wide, they will walk right through it and take everything I've built. Because that's what they've always done. They never saw me as their child. Not in the way they saw Madison. I was the backup plan. The strong, responsible one. The one who could survive on his own, so they didn't have to worry about me. And now that their golden child is gone, now suddenly they're looking at me. But I have to ask myself, do I really want to let them back in? I don't have an answer yet. But I know one thing for sure. I can't make this decision based on guilt. Because I've spent my whole life feeling guilty. Guilty for wanting their attention. Guilty for being angry that they ignored me. Guilty for thinking that maybe, just maybe, I was never enough for them. But I was enough. They just never saw it. Now it's my turn to decide. Do I help them? Or do I let them face the consequences of their choices? Let me know what you think. Drop a comment. I read every single one. After reading your comments, I knew I couldn't avoid this any longer. I needed to face them. So I agreed to meet my parents. Not at their house, because, well, they didn't have one anymore, but at a small cafe in town. I picked a place, a neutral space, somewhere public, where things couldn't get too emotional, too overwhelming. As I drove there, my mind kept racing. I tried to picture how it would go. Would they apologize? Would they finally acknowledge what they had done? Would they regret the way they had treated me all those years? Or would this be just another conversation where they skirted around the truth, too ashamed to admit what they had done, but not ashamed enough to stop asking for help? When I walked into the cafe, I spotted them right away. My mom sat at the edge of her seat, wringing her hands together, her eyes darting to the door like she was afraid I wouldn't show up. My dad sat stiffly beside her, looking down at the table, refusing to meet my gaze. And then there was Madison. She was there too. I hadn't expected that. She was sitting across from them, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. For once in her life, she wasn't the center of attention. For a second, I thought about turning around and walking right back out. But I didn't. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and walked over. Hey, it was all I said as I pulled out the chair. My mom let out a shaky breath, like she had been holding it in this whole time. My dad still wouldn't look at me. And Madison? She just raised an eyebrow, like she was waiting for something. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Finally, my mom spoke. We're so glad you came. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. I needed to keep my distance. So, I asked, you wanted to talk? She swallowed hard. We made mistakes, Alex. We see that now. But we're family, and family should take care of each other. And there it was. Not we're sorry for ignoring you. Not we regret how we treated you. Just we need your help. I waited for more. For something, anything, that showed they actually understood what they had done. But nothing came. I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. That's it? That's all you have to say? My dad finally looked up then, his jaw tight, his expression unreadable. What do you want us to say? He muttered. We know we weren't perfect parents, but we did our best. We never thought things would end up like this. I stared at him. You did your best? I repeated, my voice quiet but sharp. Your best was ignoring me for years? Your best was letting me struggle while you handed everything to Madison? Your best was pretending I didn't exist until you needed something from me? My mom's lip trembled. That's not fair. No, I cut her off. What wasn't fair was you choosing Madison over me every single time and acting like I was supposed to be okay with it. What wasn't fair was watching you give her everything while telling me to figure it out on my own. And now that she's gone, now that she doesn't want to clean up the mess she made, now I finally matter to you. Silence. My dad clenched his jaw. My mom wiped at her eyes. Madison, who had been silent this whole time, finally scoffed. Oh my God, are you really going to sit here and play the victim? She snapped. Get over yourself, Alex. Mom and Dad helped me because I needed it. You didn't. You were always fine on your own. You always acted like you were better than us anyway. So why do you even care? I turned to look at her, my hands clenching into fists under the table. I didn't act like I was better than you, Madison. I had to be better. I had to be stronger, because if I wasn't, I wouldn't have survived. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please, you love playing the self-made success story. But if you really had it all figured out, why are you still so bitter? I felt something inside me snap. You know what? I said, standing up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. You're right, Madison. I did figure it out. I built a life without Mom and Dad's help. I worked my ass off while you sat back and let them fix every single mistake you made. And now that there's nothing left to take from them, you're just going to walk away like they don't matter anymore. But me? I don't owe them anything. Not after how they treated me. Not after what they put me through. I turned back to my parents. You don't get to show up now and expect me to fix this. My mom started sobbing. Alex, please, she whispered. We just need some help getting back on our feet. My dad let out a long sigh, rubbing a hand over his face. We're not asking for much, he said. Just a little help while we figure things out. We know we messed up, but we're still your parents. I exhaled slowly. No, I said, my voice firm. You're not asking for help. You're expecting it, just like you always did. But I'm not that kid anymore. I don't need you, and I'm done letting you make me feel like I do. I looked at Madison one last time. She had that same smug expression, like she had already moved on, like none of this affected her at all. And that's when I knew. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were just sorry for where they ended up. And for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't need their apology. I didn't need anything from them. So I made my choice. I turned and walked away. And I didn't look back. Now I need to know, did I make the right choice? Or should I have helped them? Let me know in the comments. I'm listening. After my last update, I wasn't sure what to expect. But you guys came through with even more thoughts. And honestly, your words have given me a lot to think about. I walked away from my parents that day. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel like I was making a mistake. I felt free. But even now, I can't shake one question. Did I do the right thing? Some of you think I should give them one last chance. Others say I should never look back. And then there are those who believe in setting boundaries but not shutting the door completely. Here are some of the top comments. Speech balloon at No More Toxic Ties. If they can't apologize, they don't deserve a second chance. It's that simple. A real apology means admitting fault, not just expecting you to fix their mess. If they still can't take responsibility, then they haven't changed. This comment really stuck with me because it confirmed something I already knew deep down. My parents never actually apologized. They never admitted what they did. And if they couldn't do it then, what makes me think they ever will? At the end of the day, an apology isn't just words, it's action. And their actions told me everything I needed to know. Speech balloon at Boundaries Matter. Set strict rules if you help them. Otherwise, they'll take advantage of you again. Helping doesn't mean letting them walk all over you. It means deciding what you are comfortable with. This is something I've been considering. Part of me wonders if I should at least offer them some kind of help, but only on my terms. Maybe a small loan with clear conditions. Maybe setting them up with resources instead of giving them money directly. But then I think, would they even accept those boundaries? Or would they just push for more the way they always have? Some of you think I should give them a final test, see if they truly regret their actions. Others say I should cut them off for good. And I think I finally know what I have to do. I met with them one last time, not because I felt guilty, not because I owed them anything, but because I needed closure. For years, I carried this weight, this desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, one day they would see me. That one day, they would regret the way they treated me. That they would choose me the way they had always chosen Madison. But that day never came. And after everything, I had to know, had to hear it for myself, if they had truly changed. We met at a small diner just outside town. A place I used to drive by every day on my way to work, back when I was juggling 2 jobs just to keep my head above water. A place they never would have stepped foot in when they had money. But now they had no choice. I walked in and spotted them immediately. My mom was fidgeting, her fingers twisting the napkin in her lap. My dad sat stiffly, his face set in that same unreadable expression. For a split second, I felt something tighten in my chest. Not sadness, not regret, just acceptance. I wasn't the same person I had been years ago. I wasn't the kid waiting for them to notice me. I wasn't the struggling young adult hoping they'd finally care. I had built my own life without them, and now I was finally free. I sat down across from them, leaning back in my seat. So, I said, keeping my voice calm, "You wanted to talk?" My mom swallowed hard before speaking. "Alex, we know we weren't perfect parents. That was the first red flag. Not we were wrong. Not we should have done better. Just we weren't perfect. As if their mistakes were small. as if their choices weren't intentional. I didn't say anything. I just waited. She continued, "But we're family, and family is supposed to take care of each other. We need help, just something to get us through while we figure things out." There was not an apology, not an ounce of accountability, just another request, another expectation. My dad finally spoke, his voice gruff. "We're not asking for a handout. We just need a little help, just to get back on our feet." I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around the edge of the table. "You don't get to ask me for help when you spent years pretending I didn't exist," I said, my voice controlled but firm. My mom's eyes welled up. "We never meant to hurt you, Alex." "But you did," I said, "and you never once tried to make it right." "Not until now, when you have no other choice." Silence stretched between us. For the first time, my dad looked me in the eyes. "So what? You're just going to abandon us?" he asked. "After everything we've been through?" I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. "Everything we've been through?" I repeated. "You mean everything I went through? Alone? Where were you when I was struggling to afford college? Where were you when I was working 2 jobs just to pay rent? Where were you when I needed parents?" Neither of them had an answer. My mom sniffled. "We were just trying to do what was best for Madison. She needed more help than you did. You were always so independent." "No," I interrupted. "I wasn't independent. I was forced to be, because you never gave me a choice." Another silence. Madison wasn't here this time. Of course she wasn't. She had already walked away from them. She had taken everything they gave her and disappeared the moment things got hard. And now I was all they had left. I exhaled, forcing myself to stay calm. "I'm not going to give you money," I said. "I'm not going to pay off Madison's debt. I'm not going to fix the mess she made." My mom let out a soft sob, covering her face with her hands. My dad just shook his head, jaw tight. "But," I continued, "I'm willing to give you something else. A chance to earn my trust back." They both looked up. "If you truly regret what happened," I said, "prove it. Show me you've changed. Show me you understand what you did to me." For the first time, I saw something flicker across their faces, something almost like fear. "How?" my dad asked, his voice skeptical. "Figure it out," I said simply. The same words they had thrown at me when I was 18. The same words they had used every time I needed help. My mom's face crumbled. My dad sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. And then, just like I expected, they refused. Not because they didn't want my help, but because they didn't want to earn it. They wanted things to be easy, just like they had always been with Madison. They wanted a way out without having to acknowledge what they had done. But I wasn't going to give them that. I stood up, grabbing my jacket. "I hope you figure it out," I said, "but I'm done waiting for you to change." My mom whispered my name. My dad just stared at the table. Neither of them tried to stop me as I walked away. And for the first time in my life, I had no regrets. This isn't just about money. This is about knowing my worth. For years, I thought if I just worked hard enough, if I proved myself enough, they would finally love me the way they loved Madison. But I realize now I don't need their validation. I don't need their approval. I have built a life I am proud of, and I won't let them take that away. So tell me, did I make the right choice? Would you have done the same? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. This story was never just about money. It was never just about whether or not I should help my parents. It was about something much deeper, something I spent years trying to understand. It was about knowing my worth. For so long, I believed that if I worked hard enough, if I proved myself enough, my parents would finally see me. That they would wake up one day and realize that I had been there all along, waiting for them to care. But that's not how life works. People don't change because you want them to. They change because they want to. And my parents? They never wanted to. They never saw anything wrong with how they treated me until they had no other choice. Until I was the only option left. But here's the truth. Sometimes the best lesson you can teach people is letting them face the consequences of their own choices. Because forgiveness is powerful. But so is self-respect. I could have bailed them out. I could have given them what they wanted, pretended the past didn't matter, and let them back into my life as if nothing had happened. But if I did that, what would I be teaching them? That they could neglect me for years and still expect me to clean up their mess? That they could treat me like an afterthought and still demand my loyalty? No, that's not how this works. At some point, you have to draw the line. Not out of hate, not out of revenge, but out of self-worth. And that's what I did. Walking away wasn't easy. Part of me wanted to stay, wanted to give them one last chance, wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was something real in their pleas for help. But deep down, I knew the truth. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were just sorry for where they ended up. And I couldn't let that be my problem anymore. Now, I want to hear from you. Did I make the right choice? Would you have done the same? Or do you think I should have given them one last chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you love real-life stories about betrayal, redemption, and lessons learned, make sure to hit subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.